When the Harvard Business Review called data scientists the sexiest job of the 21st century in 2012, this opened the door to a new occupation, a combination of computer science, statistics, and business domain knowledge. Alongside the anticipated arrival of the fourth industrial revolution, schools, companies, and governments began gearing up for what was to be the data driven age. Today in 2021, almost 9 years after that HBR article, the dream seems elusive. Although there are pockets of data sophistication, the future, as they say, doesn't seem to be evenly distributed. Welcome to Data Ethics Conversations. Today, I talk to three individuals who are some of the most proactive data science influencers on LinkedIn: Vincent Bongolan, Joseph Rivera, and Bert Gavino, to talk about building an inclusive data science culture. Vincent is an AI innovation lead at ADB and also faculty and analytics program chair at DLSU St. Benilde and the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. His co-founder Bert comes from academia, telco, tech, and the insurance industry, while Joseph is an educator, entrepreneur, and speaker on AI ethics. All three are published book authors on data science and also conduct data science workshops and tutorials online. In this conversation, we will talk about the roadblocks to adopting data science in companies, the barriers to creating a data science curricula in schools, and also trends in building an analytics and AI driven culture in industries such as insurance, as well as practical tips of shifting into the data science profession from other fields, and also how we can build an inclusive data science community. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at EthicsPH, and on LinkedIn at DataEthicsPH. And now my conversation with Bert, Joseph, and Vincent. So maybe first up, I thought we can start with Vincent to just talk a little bit about his experience and thoughts about data science in general. So, Vincent, over to you.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. So I'll be sharing you my desktop.
Yeah, go ahead.
So here are some of the most common roadblocks in data science that I noticed. So the data management. So if your company is gearing towards implementing a data-driven decision making, you need to have a very clear and seamless program to keep that data in check. Having more data is not always a good thing, as we know. It can overload our system and it presents a huge security risk. So in other words, the less data you need to keep safe and secure, the safer your company will be. So, and the less data you need to update, organize, access, or store on an ongoing basis, your data management program should involve things like deduplication, compression, tiering, central accessibility, and of course, purging like crazy any data that isn't 100% relevant to the task at hand. One step of data in the day-to-day management includes hiring the right team members, which includes, data analysts, engineers, data scientists, and all other professionals who can do, analytics, who can keep the data organized and useful. So you can always explore technology by using artificial intelligence to help us manage and make use of the data by itself. So if you are hesitant to implement AI, then there are some, problem with this on how you can able to manage data altogether. So you might want to consider AI powered system. So in that is in a managing of data. So the second roadblock is the real-time usage. Data is growing and increasing at a very rapid rate, and one might have encountered an outdated data as soon as it was created. This is the reason why enterprises are working too much emphasis on real-time data processing. So this gives rise to the first roadblock that I mentioned earlier. So one should consider an AI-powered system for us to quickly process the data. And the third is the data sources. So pulling data from a variety and wide range of sources will help you or will help us digest information about the customers, about the business products and services, and of course, other stakeholders' data. So it will help you or it will help us ensure that our insights are not biased and it will give us a deeper understanding. So this, of course, is uh, easy to, you know, easier said than requiring the collaboration between line of business, data science, and IT. So when we talk about data sources, of course, there's a collaboration between different business divisions. So to this point, the ability to get those three groups working together has proven to be difficult. Okay, for example, we're talking about HR data, we're talking about IT data. So of course, we have to have a very sound collaboration. Of course, we should have speaking of the same language, so that we can able to easily build and create a system where we can extract the data altogether. And next is about the security and stability. So it speaks of itself. So this talks about the security of the data that we have in our system. So how do you organize this and keep it from being dirty or being swampy? So how do you assess that the data you are storing is worth of your initiative and of course worth for the cost of securing it? So if your data isn't safe from corruption, is it worthless? And if it isn't safe from hackers, it could also cost the entire brand and reputation. So for example, a collection agency who uh, stores data of a credit card borrowers. So they are paying the certain, I don't know what services of this, in order for them to store the data of the credit card holders who have some problems with their credit card. So is it worth it to pay the services for that data? And how how big the ROI they can generate? So that's a very big question today, because storing data is very costly. So some collection agencies might forget or might you know uh, what do you call this? So they wanted to just collect at least a little amount of money instead of storing it for the whole long period of time. So because monthly they need to pay the agency who are keeping the data. So it's about the security and stability of the data. So we also need to make sure that the data we are keeping is worth to store. Is it worth to invest in this data? And the last one that I am going to discuss is about the enterprise readiness. So it talks about the culture. So at the end of the data, it doesn't matter how much you gather if no one, including your executives, are willing to use it and make important company decisions. So culture is very essential in moving any project in digital transformation forward. So employees need to believe in the ability of data to provide useful insights, and they need to be willing to take a leap when data directs them into new territory. So if your company is not building a data-driven culture in lockstep with your data-driven projects, you will never see success in meeting data-driven goals. So yeah, I have a personal experience with this kind of roadblocks. So I encounter this most of the time, even in my past employment and up to my current employment. No matter how I propose a data science initiative, if the managers, if the leads are not open, for some kind of discussion, open for, to embrace this project, they don't want to listen, it's useless. So the tendency is that they will choose other company who can listen to them. So I guess those are the main roadblocks about data science which I encountered uh, during my experience. Yeah, so I guess that's all, sir. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Vincent. I mean, those are very good insights. No, we'll revisit that once everyone has presented. But I like the idea that you presented, especially the readiness of a company, which is really more about culture. Like I'm quite a believer in, if culture eats strategy for breakfast, ba? That's the saying.
Yeah.
And technology also is a part of culture, no? How ready is your culture for technology? Sige, we'll come back to that, right after the rest, no?
Okay.
So maybe next up we can have Joseph to present some views about. I think you want to talk about. Anyway, I won't preempt your topic. Go ahead, Joseph, and present your thoughts on this issue or this topic.
Good evening, everyone. And so I'm going to talk about the how our academia, the different schools, institutions in the Philippines really deal with the challenge of teaching or incorporating data science in the curriculum. Because I believe this is the challenge of our schools, not just for private schools, but also for public schools. And to think the fact that not a lot of schools are really offering data science. Here in Cebu, I really can see that the schools do not offer data science, although I think they are interested to incorporate the course in their curriculum. However, they don't have enough knowledge and capability on how to handle this kind of challenge for these opportunities that data science may bring, not only for the students, but also for the society as a whole. So, so the first challenge is that how to incorporate data science education into the curriculum. So I think this is actually very difficult because we have a lot of discussions or even definitions of what data science is. And it's because of these kind of situations, there's no consensus as to what data science really is, then it would be very difficult for these different schools to incorporate data science into the curriculum. Of course, we do have a lot of definitions coming from different people, coming from different backgrounds, and I believe that that would not be enough to agree on what data science really is as a field, because based on also on my readings, data science can never be treated as a field, but it's just an umbrella term which encompasses a lot of disciplines. So that is why for many schools it would be very difficult to incorporate data science as a course or as a discipline in itself. So educating students about building value from data is a challenge because first and foremost, it could be, which I'm going to talk later about the teaching staff of a different academia. But for now, the question would be that what would be the kind of methodology on how to teach students as to how to build value from data. So when we say value, it has something to do with from the very step of data gathering and even to the last step of deployment and so on and so forth. Of course, there could be a lot of steps in between. So teaching students on how to appreciate the results that data can give to a certain project. It could be in uh, technology. It could be in any projects that's related to social projects. Then that is still a challenge. Then um, teaching big data revolution is also a challenge for our academe, and it has something to do with interconnecting the different sources of data and the different tools that are used for evaluation of maybe certain projects possibly. So with this, our academe is not still ready to face the challenge of incorporating and teaching the big data revolution. So it could be that, which I'm going to talk later, it has something to do with how prepared the teaching staff would be. Of course, there could be exceptions when it comes to this kind of situation. For example, LaSalle, it could be AIM or UP. These schools are exceptions, but for most schools, they are not yet ready. In fact, most schools here in Cebu or even in the whole Visayas or maybe even Mindanao, they are not yet capable of handling even simple the data analytics things. It's because in my observations, just data analytics is not treated as a subject, but only as a part of a certain subject. It could be just a chapter of a certain book or a unit of a certain course. So with that, it's actually very difficult to teach students, and that is going back to my first point, and that is educating students on how to build value from data. It's because our academe our teaching methodology is not geared towards the enhancement of students' skills and capability on how to handle and how to deal with data. And then it's because um, our academe is not yet ready. Then the problem is they don't understand and they don't know how to connect data science to other disciplines. So of course, data science is applicable in all fields. It's very helpful, whatever field would that be. But then the problem is that when these academe, when these teachers, when these professors still do not know how to connect this field to other disciplines, then that is still a problem. Okay. Then my last point is that expanding the curriculum. So actually, this part of my point is very much related to my first point, which is still about the curriculum. Because when your problem is you do not know how to make the curriculum of data science, there is no possible way you can expand the curriculum. And so when we say expanding the curriculum, then we have to go back to our teaching force. We have to go back to the preparedness, to the capability of our teachers, of our professors. So I believe, at least in my observations, and this may not be true to all academics, especially for those universities and uh, schools that I have mentioned. So preparing and augmenting data science staff. So for most schools, maybe their teachers, maybe their professors who are teaching mathematics and statistics do not still understand and do not still know how these subjects are related to formulating questions that are very much related to other disciplines. So, for example, how are you going to connect statistics to political science? How you're going to connect statistics to civil engineering? So these are just some of the questions that academia really have to deal with. And to do that, they first have to focus on their teaching capability. The it could be the training and orientation, and maybe giving more scholarships to teachers so that they can be prepared. But that is actually very easy to say, but very difficult to do. It's because not in all places data science can be available, at least for face-to-face trainings. Although we do have a lot of online trainings that our schools, our universities can tap, but I think and I believe when it comes to how they're going to make projects would be very much difficult because coaching would be, I believe, not very effective when it is done online. That is, I believe. And because teachers, professors are not prepared to handle subjects related to data science, then they could not augment their data science staff. And when I say augmentation, it is something to do with, again, going back to the point I mentioned earlier, it is something to do with connecting data science in different fields. So with this, I believe that data science should be taught not just a standalone course, but it should be incorporated in all disciplines. So it can be used to study political law, for example. It can be used and incorporated in education. It could be in commerce and all courses. So that's it.
Thanks a lot, Joseph. I think you opened up another can of worms, though. So if Vincent talked about challenges in companies, you're sharing about like a more fundamental problem about how do you
Yeah.
teach data science and analytics in the curriculum.
Yeah.
It's actually a challenge that I've also gone through, being having been part of a faculty in a university. But yeah, let's talk more about this
Yes.
after the
Yes.
last presentation, no? So before we do an open forum, let's finally hear some ideas from Bert. No, Bert, you wanted to share some stuff about
Yeah.
particular
Yeah.
field.
Share my slides. Yeah. So today we'll talk about. I'm coming from the insurance industry, and what are the trends and things happening in the insurance industry right now. So I'm gonna make it very very short, like the lightning talk on what are the possible applications in insurance. We know that insurance is very traditional, but what are the AI applications that I have seen in insurance as well in the local industry? So let's go through that. Um, I've seen a lot of challenges in the organizations on how to build culture, how to make use cases, how to make proof of concepts. And most of the things that I've encountered are businesses don't know what kinds of problems they need to solve. They always think about, oh, I need to make more profits. I need to make a new product or market share. But they haven't figured out how data science can really help them solve these kinds of problems specifically. And there's a gap between data scientists and the business stakeholders. The data scientists focus on the algorithms, the k-means, the neural networks, the regression. But there's a gap between explaining all of these algorithms and how business can benefit from it, like return of investment, and it's gonna increase like 2% in my profits or my bottom line. So these are very, very important in the business side. And usually when it comes to the business, they ask, okay, how much do I need to invest in your tools? Do you have like a cloud platform? How much I'm gonna invest in AWS and Azure? And the guys are gonna say, oh, it's very expensive. Maybe we'll just invest a little bit and take a look at it. What else do we need to invest in? We need to invest in trainings, yes, because you know the speed at which artificial intelligence is moving, it's moving exponentially. I have to catch up with algorithms that I haven't seen. So you have GPT-3, you have deep learning, you have convolutional neural networks. I have to learn about all the other complex stuff that wasn't there 2 to 3 years ago, right? So we've seen NLP moving so fast, image processing moving fast. You got GPU clusters, you got cognitive, you got personality types. There's a lot of things to deal with, and I agree with the guys here that it's really a big domain. It's really a lot of things. You have data engineering, you got data science, you got data architecture, you got deep learning, you got artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of things to cover. So that's why we need to embed our people or our employees into learning courses like Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, and then one of the things that we do is to build more communities. So we have like internal communities talking about Python, talking about talking about our users group. So there's a lot of communities locally that supports all of this artificial intelligence topics, and they give it for free. Doc Dominic, I know he's really out there touching a lot of topics from data ethics, data privacy. There's about consent from the customer. Are we allowed to delete that data? What if the customer wants, I want my data deleted after a year, so you guys won't use it for your training data, right? You're not going to use that for your algorithm. So there's a lot of topics in terms of data privacy. If I work with a third-party provider, do I need to have a data sharing agreement with them? How am I gonna deal with a lot of those data? So these are the things that's usually happening in the local setting. And here in the Philippines, it's not as far as Singapore or Japan or the other first world countries like Europe or Paris. I've seen there's a gap. People in Europe or in Paris, they're talking about deep learning, they're talking about GDPR and data privacy and data ethics. While in the Philippines, we're still not at that stage. We're just trying to share data. We're still looking to invest in people, train them more, and get them to at par with other Asian countries. And you've seen there's a lot of research papers from China. China is really investing so fast in artificial intelligence. I've seen a lot of papers from Google coming from the Chinese authors. It's really strong in China. I think they do have a lot of capability in artificial intelligence, and we from the Philippines, we need to keep up. We need to build these more communities, invest more in our tools, invest more in people, and expand it more. So these seminars, these webinars are really helpful, not just for the students, but for other professionals as well. Okay, what are the things that I'm seeing in the insurance and tech industry? So in InsurTech, we dealt with chatbots. I think chatbots are a lot in the organization, and there's a lot of challenge in chatbots in saying that how can it address the customer side. We built chatbots on what can be improved from the negative sentiments. So if a customer is complaining about billing, how can we make the chatbot more intelligent and probably detect that this customer is wanting to ask more about his billing statements. I've seen a lot about robotic process automation. It's not entirely in the field of data science, but since business sees RPA as efficiency or saving up on a lot of costs, and there's a lot of volume of very manual things like paperwork and manuals. So RPA is right up there, but we need to combine RPA and artificial intelligence to make it stronger. So we need to combine that with algorithms. So it's going to be RPA plus algorithms, and then you can have that artificial intelligence factor in. I'm seeing a lot now, since we're now in digital, there's a lot of fraud going on social media and digital. So we need to come up with better algorithms to detect fraud. So we have some things going on projects like fraud for claims or for insurance. Like how do we detect if you file a claim for motor insurance, but your car wasn't really damaged, and then you took a picture of another car and then you sent it to claims. How are we gonna detect that picture was taken from Google or so? So there's a lot of things happening on fraud, and because people are very intelligent, they change the business rules so they can get away from it. So it's entirely changing, not just like the credit card system, but it's also happening in the insurance industry. Also, we see that since there's COVID, people stop going to over the counter in banks. So they're now opting to go digital, like Gcash and Paymaya. They're opting to use all of these online payment facilities, and they want to buy insurance digitally and get their policies. So they want that as fast as possible. If you can do that in like less than 30 minutes or so, that would be a great turnaround time. Also in the picture here, you can see something about accelerometers. I shared this on LinkedIn, and I've seen insurtech companies coming into this opportunity of putting sensors in cars on the XYZ plane, like 9.88 meters per second square, the gravity, if the car is going to topple down or not. There's a lot of opportunity in this space in sensors, and it's gonna change the field of insurance, because insurance right now is very traditional. Some haven't tapped the level of transactional data to use that. Oh, if I'm driving better, do I have lower annual premiums for my insurance? And in terms of motor insurance, do I get more better coverage from a car accident, or am I driving at dirt roads versus better roads? Am I prone more to accidents? Am I a truck driver, jeepney driver, tricycle driver? What's my behavior? If we can put on sensors in more motor vehicles, we can save more lives through this. So I like what Doc Dominic said. It's like data science for social good, like saving lives through the use of artificial intelligence is very important for me. It's not just about profits and the enterprise itself, but if you can build an AI that's saving lives, or more like the social good, like renewable energy or so, that would be excellent for us. Okay, this is my last slide. There's a lot of tools on AI. I've seen a lot of tools on big data, like Scala, Apache Spark, but I've seen a lot of changes as well. Before Hortonworks and Cloudera are competitors, now they're merged into one. You can use either of them in the telco arena. You got big data like Hive tables in HBase, wanting to 10 million rows, 100 million rows. I agree with what Vincent showed in the quadrants, that okay, you have to check first if you do have a lot of big data, then it's okay to invest in like a big data platform. But if you have like 1,000 rows and you just need Excel, might as well stick to that first before you go to the big data platform, because it's a lot of investment and you have to learn a lot in terms of the cloud. So you can see here on the cloud services, you got AWS, you got Microsoft Azure, you got Google Cloud. So you have to be careful in that. If you forgot to turn off your instance, it's gonna really bill out in 24 hours. So you have to make sure you know what technology you are using. And I think this is the lacking in terms of schools, like Joseph said. How do they use these tools if it's not for free, right? So there should be more like community editions for schools, and hoping the big providers can provide for that in terms of the universities and the colleges as well. For RPA, there's UiPath and Automation Anywhere. These are also licensed tools. I'm hoping there are more open source tools that you can build from Python. That will be excellent. We got for data science, there's two main programming languages, is R, Python. I've seen communities they want really Python. I've seen communities they want R. But for me, it's up to you. I sometimes use Python for specific things. I use R for specific things like statistics and academic. Like if you want to do deep learning, there's Keras and TensorFlow, and you have the GPU cluster. If you want even to go into engineering, there's Internet of Things like Raspberry Pi and Arduino boards, which are excellent. One of the problems we have right now in the Philippines is how do we improve our internet infrastructure when you develop something like an IoT device, right? I have like, how many sensors do we have in the Philippines? Maybe 500, 700 sensors across Philippines. We got 7,100 islands. So how do we build more of that to have better weather prediction accuracy, right? So those things are really good topics for me in terms of the artificial intelligence space. So yep, that's it from me. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bert. Now I think it's really a wide, wide range of topics we have today. Wait, let me just. Actually, I kind of like that last slide you had, Bert. You wanna flash that again? The AI trends.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Let me just.
let's use that as our main visual. No, maybe for the people who haven't who need to know more about all of you. No, maybe just pass around the microphone. Maybe starting with you, Bert. No, way back when. No, how would you characterize how you got started in data science? No, what was your main main hook? Was that a job decision or a
Yeah.
passion decision?
This is a good question. Before I went into data science, I was actually a web developer. So I was doing HTML and JavaScript. And back in the day, dot coms were really hype. Everybody wanted to be a web developer and web designer until it plateaued down. So there's a lot of web developers already. And then I wanted to get into something very unique. So I met someone from the LaSalle College of St. Vincent who was into data mining. It wasn't called data science yet. It was called data mining. So I was very interested to get into that because I have a background in statistics and mathematics, and it's got a lot of stats. So I went into there, learned about SPSS modeler before it was bought by IBM. So that's where it all started. And I was fascinated by all these algorithms, but the software I was using wasn't open source. So I was curious. Okay, I'm clicking on this, but I don't know what's happening in the engine. So I had to read more. Uh, what is there? And I was looking for community groups. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything. There were none. The closest I could get was Philippine Computer Society or a statistics group. Was the closest thing I can get. But right now, you can see there's a lot of data science groups. The data science community is up there. So I'm really happy there. I could interact now with a lot of people on how to work on the code and work on a lot of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how lucky they are, no, nowadays, where there's a lot of information
Yes.
available for free. No, if you can, it's not even hard to find. No? Before you could find free info, but it's hard. Now
Exactly.
it's easy. It's actually harder to find expensive information that isn't available for free.
Agree.
What about Joseph? What was your story? How did you get into the field?
Okay, so I think my stories was just not really that amazing, but it was just a product of just an afterthought maybe. It's because I was just given a book for me to read, so I just read that book and just found just one chapter that talked about analytics. So just from there, I learned about it. I studied a lot, and then of course I also went back to the very basic, and that was to study, of course, statistics and other subjects that are related to data science. And so in my readings, as I went to the process of understanding data science, I came across a lot of research studies, and Albert said it was like all about these topics which came from China. So it really struck me. So those researches that could change lives of people, and I really got interested. So basically, that's how I started.
Okay.
Apart from the fact that, of course, marketing analytics can be used in my own business. So just combine everything all together. So I could use data science not just for business, but also for social good. So that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. You were actually quite active already in the digital marketing space, right? And then
Yes, yes,
transitioning
yes,
into data science. Okay.
yes, yes.
What about Vincent? What was your path into data science?
Yeah, actually, I don't know how I started because for me, that data science, it's a mind blowing discipline. So I thought data science is a glorified statistics or data mining discipline. So I came across data science when I was working in a big market research company when Typhoon Yolanda, hit Tacloban. So and there's so many clients asking data from us, and so my director gave me the project, and so do anything what you can do with this data that we have. So, and I said, what? I was, because before I was just, complied with what my managers has told me to do this, do that. So during that time, there is no any other, instruction. So just he just gave me the project and do what you want to do what you can do. So I was like starting reading about data science, about reading about strategies, about how do I simulate data from other available data sources. So I read a lot of materials, especially so I came across one of the we call this analytics book in the company. So I read that, so very thick volumes of books. So I read a lot. So at, when I finished the project, I am not that confident that I did, what I did is correct, or no. I'm very, very hesitant. In fact, after 3 months, I went to our HR department, and I talked to them, and I was planning to file my resignation because I feel that I am not ready yet with that kind of job, because my long years of experience was in the academe. So I was I stayed in the academe for almost 8 years during that time before going to enterprises. So that is my first time to encounter about the data science, encountered about any analytics solutions. So that's where I started actually. So it was just came from an actual experience. So like I said, what the heck, I need to do some upscaling. So if I will not going to upskill myself, I will like a rotten apple. So I will be left aside. So yeah, so that's how I started.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a common thread, no, in your stories, where you all came from a nearby field, and then somehow you transitioned into it by either reviewing what you already knew. Like you have a statistics background, diba, Vincent, and
Yes.
si Bert came from a math background, but then you brought that into data science. No? I think that's a good segue, because one question I wanted to float amongst. And by the way, maybe so I can share then, my background naman is finance. No, when I exactly what you said, Bert. No, we didn't call it data science back in the day. We called it data mining. My first experience with big data was in trading. No? I was a trader, equity trader, and before we called it uh, uh, automated trading. Nowadays, it's algorithmic trading, technical analysis back in the day, and then now it's algorithms. But my first taste of having a training set and a testing set was in financial markets, and then after that, in banking, no? In credit scoring. So again, credit scoring, it's using some of the more familiar algorithms like logistic regression, linear regression, but we didn't call it a science. No? Maybe we called it decision science, no? But not really data science. So, so it's interesting now. So can I float a question to all of you? There's a term that I don't know how old this term is. No? It's maybe fairly recent. That I hear about from time to time. It's called imposter syndrome. And when I tried digging into it, parang it's two extremes. Eh. One extreme is parang people who can't admit that they already know enough. So they keep training and training and training, but they never quite get into the practice. So I don't know if you've met some people like that, or what's your comment there. And then there's the other extreme naman, lesser extreme, I would say, or lesser number of uh, people who quickly become experts, no, with very very little training or experience, and then especially nowadays where you see a lot of these boot camps, call them quote unquote boot camps of okay, you take 10 sessions and voila, you're a data scientist. But surely the reality is somewhere in between, right? So I don't know. Bert, do you want to start with that? Have you heard of that term, and what's your view
Yeah,
of that?
yeah. I I often hear this from a lot of good data scientists that they have the imposter syndrome, that they're not that good, but they are actually good. And the opposite of that, there's a Dunning-Kruger effect that learned a few scripts and they say, oh, okay, I'm data scientist because I got a course from Coursera that's about fundamentals, right? So I copy paste my Python code. Okay, I did that. I'm an automatic data scientist. So I'm very careful with that one because that one's really dangerous if you implement a model without knowing what's happening in the engine, without knowing the mathematics behind or the distribution. So I'm very careful with those types of people and make sure. I usually start with the simple models and go from there to complex. So yeah, I think I also come across that like imposter syndrome. There's a lot of people who have PhDs, who's into data science. So if you get to see them and talk to them, oh, it's really high. But there's just a few of people who do have PhDs. So yeah.
Yeah. In your case, Vincent, do you encounter that term? And what's the solution to it? No, if you're aware, no.
Actually, as of this time, I even don't consider myself as a data scientist. Maybe I'm a data scientist. Uh, you know, uh,
Advocate or something like that, no.
yeah, I'm just a data scientist enthusiast, something like that. So because I know myself, I have a lot of things that needs to learn. So it's really hard for me to accept that I am a data scientist. But for example, when I was currently with in Asian Development Bank, since I know what I'm doing, yes, I am a data scientist because I know this field. I know what I'm what I'm doing in this the company. But then if we talk about if someone asks me about medicine or medical data, if someone asks me about HR data, I don't think I can consider myself as a data scientist on that because that is not my, I have not, I have no, I have less experience on that. So something like that. So I'm a data scientist at a certain level only. So it depends on how I experience something.
Or maybe it's the word scientist, no? Parang
Yeah.
napaka-loaded, no?
Yeah,
Na,
because when you say data scientist kasi for me, it encapsulates everything eh.
mm.
But
Or
in my case, it's
yeah,
not.
yeah. Or especially with more and more people from, well, you came from the academia, but more people are coming like straight from academia, like with PhDs to work in corporate. Um, I think like I didn't come from academia. I came into academia after, no? Now I'm teaching, but I really came from industry. The the practice of analytics and research, it's similar on some levels, but the outcomes are
Yes.
very different. No? So even I wouldn't call myself a scientist, even with all of the work I've done. But now that I'm in academia, I know what proper research is. Maybe it's that term, no? If
Yeah.
you're a data scientist, it's like you're a researcher, but you're in a corporate or some kind of field that's more applied or practical. In your case, Joseph, how did you perceive the term imposter syndrome or scientist? No? Was that ever a challenge?
So that term is actually very heavy, especially for those people who have just gotten their trainings. So I say superficial trainings, just like Albert said, it's just about coding, without even understanding the mathematical concepts behind each algorithm. I think that's very much difficult, especially when we would manage and evaluate the kind of model that we have. So the result would be um, during the production, the result can cause a tremendous damage to the company. So I believe for these people, they have to go through the process of incorporating proper mathematical understanding of the algorithms. So with this, they would be able to make um, evaluations, the proper evaluations as to what kind of algorithm to use for a certain problem, because not in all problems we're going to use the same algorithms, but it has to go through a lot of um, checks and balances, and sometimes, and in some cases, Not because we've come up with this kind of result, it would be acceptable. You still have to go through someone's experience if it is really acceptable or not. So in this case, domain knowledge is still very important. So when it comes to those people who um, believe that they don't have enough, but they can still do they can still do the same project. I mean, the thing of data science, I think what they have to do is they have to, I mean, practice, because that is really my experience. Practice. You have to get dirty with with the data. So only with, I think it has something to do with their confidence, and only through that they can build up themselves. So I am not against those people who are really telling the world that they are data scientists, but it has something to do with how you prove your worth. So for these people, just good luck, and then try to do more projects, I think, and and study more. So that's it, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great point to get. Why don't I share my screen so you guys can be a bit more flexible, no? So I tried summarizing all of the points you made, no, on one page, and para we have something to look at. We'll jump off from a point you made, Joseph, about the academia, no? Do you think the schools will ever catch up? Because I remember reading in one article, I think it was, or I don't know, I think it came from AAP, where the APEC said that the demand for data scientists by 2022 will be somewhere north of 500,000 or more, people. And I don't know if that's still validated or not, but the current supply that they were reporting back then was about less than 200,000. And that's what prompted, I think, helped prompt the schools to start coming up with their own degrees.
Yeah,
AIM was one of the first, but now more and more schools are coming out. Pero each class is probably what, 30 people, 40 people at most.
yeah.
Are we ever going to produce 500,000 data scientists by 2022? I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's going to be a miracle. I think we need Jesus to come up with that kind of result. Because if you're going to do that, we first have to equip our teaching force, and the problem is that even until now, our teaching force in the whole Philippines in general are not equipped when it comes to data science things. I think that's really very a problem, because we can never give if we don't have. So we can never train people if our academy is not yet ready. First is when it comes to the capability of the teaching force, and second, when it comes to the infrastructure. So do we have enough infrastructure um, to train our students and to let them use this infrastructure, at least to learn these different tools, at least for learning the tools, not related to coding.
Right. In your case, Vincent, because you also came from academia, what are your views on academia and their readiness, no, to produce, like, I don't know, graduates?
Actually, yeah, for me, there are two things. It's about the curriculum development. It's really hard to develop a curriculum where students can able to understand. Like for example, now I'm currently actually being asked to build a curriculum on data science and analytics in Benilde. And so I can promise them to give it, you know, to give it, in this term. So I promise to maybe I can give them maybe next year, something like, because today it's really hard to build a data science. And aside from that is the tools that we can possibly use, because enterprise software such as AWS, uh, IBM, Modeler, SPSS Modeler is very costly. And even SaaS analytics, it's very costly. So
Yeah, exactly.
we don't know how, we really don't know how the university can, able to
Support all
have the
that, no?
license. Yes. So the problem right now that I'm having experiencing is that how can I teach the student, for example, the topic is about optimization. So this Microsoft Excel can do the optimization procedure, the linear programming optimization. So I really don't know how to
Yes.
teach this kind of topic. So that's what I'm, currently experiencing with my students. So I also proposed Python, but then again, the school dean asked me, how is it, how can we teach Python to the student? Is it easy to learn? Do we need, it's like an SPSS wherein we can just point click. So it's really difficult when it comes to implementing data science. So I really don't know why other universities have the data science course right now. So I myself don't know.
In your case, Bert, since you kind of straddle between academia and industry, and you conduct training as well. I saw in your chart you had a lot of technologies there. Do you think our schools are equipped, or how would you reframe this whole idea of educating more data scientists? It seems like they have to be masters of everything, no? Not just the math, but also the tools, and then not even counting the domain expertise. No, any ideas on that?
Correct. It's really difficult to stick to one software vendor, like say for IBM, because after 2 to 3 years it will change. No, when I taught it in the university, one term it was Cognos. There was no Python popularity yet. So the tools I taught that time, if I go back to it, I probably not use it anymore. They're not that advanced anymore. So that's one of the problems when it comes to the data science curriculum. The tools are changing so fast, but we can address it by asking the software companies to partner with universities. I think Google is doing that. They can offer like a Google enterprise solutions to a specific university that the students can use. So it depends on the number of students who's going to use that. So for me, it's best for schools to look for partner vendors that they can work with. And then number two, data sets. Data sets is a problem. If I go to the Kaggle and I go to the MPG cars data sets, that's a 1977 data set. So it's not relevant. Or if I go to the Boston House pricing, that's a bit old already. How can students relate to that use case? Or when I was teaching analytics, they don't know the Vegemite. It's in Australia and New Zealand. So what's a Vegemite? How do I understand what the analytics in that area is if it's not here in the Philippines, right? So those are use cases that I can see as a challenge to teach. So when I teach to students, it's mostly they want very basic topics like groceries data set. Okay, so which aisle do I go to? Which item of pairs that I can show? So I usually go to the basic stuff. So yeah, for me, it's a really big challenge to teach data science because the domain is so big, as Joseph mentioned. It's so big. You got NLP, you got predictive analytics, you got statistics, and sometimes I have to go review. Okay, guys, we got to go back to our p-values. What's a p-value? What's a central limit theorem? So I need to go back. Or if there are students interested in the stock market, there's probably a few who's into time series or ARIMA. So the class, probably there's just 20% who's really into it. The 80% really have to get them involved into the projects themselves. So yeah, it is a challenge.
If we can take it one step further, no, because obviously we keep talking about the fourth industrial revolution, where parang everyone is expected to know about data, and then we have this parang ongoing situation where it's hard to teach. It's not enough people know enough, or the people who know, they're not actually teaching, they're practicing. So there's a talent gap. But yet, when I hear about your stories, you guys basically learned it on your own, no? So it's kind of a weird, no, parang paradox, no? Like the many practitioners. Actually, I would count myself there. I didn't get most of my training in data science in a school. Some basics were there, like stat. I think I had about several units of stat only. The the rest of it came from other fields. No, like you encounter regression in economics. Also, you also encounter it in finance. But I was never really like looking at it nowadays. No, where people seem to be obsessed about. You mentioned this earlier, Bert. No, can you talk about that? Like, parang people seem to be quite obsessed with algorithms and tools to the exclusion of parang the practical application, like especially in meetups. No, everyone's like talking neural network this, neural network that. I mean, to be honest, it's really a fascinating field, powerful stuff. But then when you go back to work, you'll hardly touch a neural network. So it's kind of a weird, I don't know, parang it's a two-track economy. So any ideas on that?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people in the field of computer science. They do a lot of programming. So what they do is they play around with the scripts and the Python scripts, and then they test it out, and then it actually works. It runs. The Python script runs. I copy this and paste this, and it actually runs on my code. But the difficulty is explaining the algorithm itself. That's where I saw, okay, it's running, and how do I explain this to my stakeholders, to the C-level executives, the CEO or CFO? How do I explain a neural network? Then that's where the problem begins. How do you explain a neural network to someone who doesn't have any technical expertise? So that's where the problem begins. When a computer scientist is able to run the program, okay, it's running, it's got an output. Okay, can you explain it to the CEO? So that's where the problem begins. When, okay, we don't understand how it works. How can we trust this algorithm, right? How can we trust this algorithm and implement this algorithm, so that now it becomes a problem in the business side? For the regression and the other classical models, that won't be a problem, but it's a problem for the more advanced algorithms, like, yes, neural networks, or the even deep learning. It's really
Learning,
hard to
yeah.
explain how it all works.
Autoencoders,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
all that stuff.
transformers and all
Yeah.
this stuff. It's really hard to explain to them. Yeah.
Vincent, you mentioned this in your talk, enterprise readiness. No, so do you have an insight on how you can get management ready? Like, as was what Bert was saying. No, if they're not technically inclined, or they've never used algorithms before, do you have an insight on how do you fix that if that's the problem?
Yeah, actually, I experienced that in my current work. So I will not just mention my current work. So hope nobody will remember what I mentioned where I am currently working. Yeah. So uh, my role is about AI innovation lead. So when I start working with the company, I saw that there is a big data available, and I'm quite interested to build, for example, like Sir Bert has mentioned, it's about the chatbot. So can we? I told the management. I asked, are we allowed to install the Python, for example? Are we allowed to, for example, use the other like, for example, the Google chatbot? What, I forgot the name.
That collab? No.
The dialogue flow. So
Okay.
I introduced them about the chatbot, Python, about dialogue flow, and they asked me the same question. What is that? What is Python? Is it free? How much it costs? Does it affect our data? So, what are the loopholes when we install Python? So can we, is our system, uh, safe? Something like that. So it takes almost 5 months of negotiation with the security and the security department before they allowed me to install Python. So while doing that, I am currently uh, doing a chatbot using the dialog flow. So as an example, so I actually create a personal chatbot using my personal laptop, and I presented it to the management, how it works, how to navigate this, how to do this, how to modify this. So I presented it to my manager, and at last, after almost a year, they embraced the use of those software. So now we're actually using Python to develop an application for Pepper. So if you're familiar with Pepper Robotics, or Pepper Robot from SoftBank Robotics, so we actually have two robots in the headquarters. So what I did is to build an application for the robot. So if you're familiar with the robot in as a Mega Mall, so similar to ADB. So we have robot right now, and it's quite you know uh, fulfilling when you're able to prove that what you are asking for them is really helpful for the organization. And right now, we have a challenge when it comes to understanding the IT data, so the service desk data. So we're currently subscribed with the ServiceNow platform, and the version that we have right now is having ML functionality. So I propose that it is also possible for us to develop a chatbot in a service now. So yeah. So for now, I guess my boss is some kind of a listening. So maybe because the reason why I am proposing this kind of uh, project, this kind of initiative, because I'm also uh, it's very obvious that I want to prove to my boss that you know I am because actually the role is vacant right now in ADB, so I am doing everything for them to impress my boss. So there's two purpose. So I have my purpose because I need to impress them because I am interested for the role. So yeah.
Yeah, and then what? Hopefully, one day you become the boss, no? So you don't have to get impressed because you understand it. Um, okay, so definitely there's a roadblock in companies. There's a roadblock in learning. What about the community? This was a critical component that Bert mentioned. No? So Joseph, in Cebu, how is the analytics community there? Or and how what can we do to make it better? No? I remember 3 years ago we were there and people had hardly heard of data science and analytics. No?
Yes. Um, Here in Cebu, actually, there are trainings every now and then, but mostly the trainings are about the tool-based techniques. So most likely it's about AWS. So this kind of trainings, but when it comes to really understanding the what's working behind these tools, I think this is the kind of field that is not yet touched. But um, for wait, but other things. But basic things only. For example, it's about the use of Excel. These are just some of the trainings just for the enterprises, for small and medium enterprises, but not really for the big ones. But I think the communities here in Cebu are not really into the hardcore understanding of data science because people here sometimes would ask me about what these algorithms are, and when I tell them how to do it and the concept behind it, I think they would just uh, be afraid of doing more. It's because for them, it's really a hardcore part of data science, which they don't want to do. And the other challenge is these people would just go directly into coding without understanding the basics first, the concepts. I think that's very difficult as far as my experience is concerned. It's because we can have the coding, we can copy the coding actually, we can do the coding, but when we implement, the algorithm, I think that would be a problem because these people may have a background in programming, but then when it comes to building algorithms, they don't understand properly. So this is the kind of challenge that the people here in the Visayas, at least in the Visayas and in Cebu, really has to. But in some provinces, like for example, Iloilo, even in Bacolod, Tacloban, and some other key cities in the Visayas, they don't really have the community
Very,
that,
it's
yeah,
non-existent, ano?
it's
Yeah,
non-existing.
yeah,
So it's really a big challenge, especially when I go back to Iloilo because I'm from Iloilo.
yeah.
And when I talk to some people also there, they are actually um, they are actually stagnant when it comes to these technologies. Maybe they have some background when it comes to tool-based data science, but um, I think that would not suffice if we would like to really elevate ourselves in this field. I, these are the challenges we have here in the Visayas.
Yeah, it's just, in other words, even in the capital, it's already a shortage. Much worse, pa, no?
Yes,
Outside the
yes.
capital. Okay, Bert, you're quite active in a lot of communities, no? I think you were in the Data Science Philippines, RUG, PH, and more, no? What's your view of the community activity now? Is it getting better? Is there something we can do better? Or is it getting worse? Or are there ways we can improve it?
I think there's a lot of growth in terms of the communities here. And what's fascinating is there's now opportunity like with government. I know Ralph Regalado is doing something for the city of Manila. So there's now more. It's now more open. Government agencies are willing to take on AI projects from local vendors, and I'm seeing a lot of local AI startups moving, like thinking machines. Even from your side, Doc Dominic, I think there's a lot of growth now. There's a lot of market to go because number one, the linear regression in the Philippines is the same linear regression in Europe, right? So the algorithm is exactly the same. So if you got the convolutional neural network in Paris, the convolutional neural network in the Philippines will also actually work. And I'm seeing a lot of in the BPOs or the call centers, they're now looking to hire a lot of data scientists. I was surprised by that. I thought that the call centers were gonna go away because there's a lot of automation, but now they're shifting to the AI field, and you can see a lot of data scientists now working in the BPOs in the call centers. So there's a shift now. So that I wasn't aware of that happening. So because of that, there's now communities in the BPOs and call centers talking about R, talking about Python, and now the people or the employees are now learning data scientists from the regular visualization tools. They're now going to the machine learning in the corporate setting like BPO. So I was surprised by that. So there's now communities in that space. So I'm curious to know if this is the same in other industries like energy or retail. I think there's a lot of local companies like going into data science because they want to adapt to the digital setting and gather all of the digital data and use data science versus before. I don't need data science. All my manual papers is there. My business is working. So it is changing. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially since COVID-19, no, forced everyone to go online for
Yes.
the most part, no. Hopefully, if there's one good thing that comes out of the pandemic, it's people realize that automation and data is the way to go. But yeah, I think it remains to be seen. I'm just conscious of time now. We've been talking for 1.5 hours straight. Can you believe it? So maybe I'll do another round of questions, and then we can start maybe giving you guys opportunities to give your takeaways now. So maybe one common question I want to uh, you know uh, to share. I mean to ask everyone is, So we've talked about data analytics and data science as kind of prototypal fields. It's something that only formed in the last few years. It's not as established as, for example, statisticians, as Vincent mentioned. Actuaries are another near field, and of course the other proper scientific fields. No, so my question would be, how do we professionalize this? No? Because at some point, who knows? Maybe at some point there might even be a licensure or a certification. I mean, there are some certificates available, but it's not like commonly recognized now. But at some point, we probably will want to professionalize the practice of data science and analytics. What are your views on what's lacking for us to get to that point? Maybe Vincent, in your case, we'll start with you. Are we close to professionalizing data science and analytics as a practice?
I don't know yet because if we want to, standardize or to professionalize the data science, I guess this should come from the academy first. So, like for example, when the university gave me the subject, for example, predictive analytics, and I was just reviewing the syllabus, and there are some topics there, including neural network, deep learning. But when I asked them what software we can have, we can use, they don't have any idea what software. So how do you come up with this kind of syllabus? So how can I teach this topic? So neural networks, deep learning, even regression alone, you cannot do it in a Microsoft Excel. So it's really hard. So I guess this should start from the academy. So aside from, of course, there are some trainings available like Udemy, Coursera, EDX. But I guess, for example, EDX or Coursera, those are, paid the training. But then again, it's not that helpful as it may, seem, because for me, it's better to have learned this discipline in a formal school. So it's way before, way back. So it takes time for us to make it, standardized or professionalized.
Okay. Joseph, your thoughts on the professionalization of analytics?
I think when it comes to professionalization of data science or analytics, I think we have to make some kind of division between what should be taught first in the undergraduate level and what is supposed to be taught during the graduate level, the masters, and then the PhDs. And I believe when these things are properly identified and when proper boundaries are set, we would be able to identify what kind of competencies to be taught for each um, semester, for example. So, for example, we have to differentiate between the front end and then the back end. And we have to also incorporate what specific topics of data analytics for in each course, and are we going to make data analytics and machine learning standalone course or standalone degrees? Because if we're going to incorporate machine learning into, for example, political science, I think that would be very difficult for a person who is not really into mathematics, because machine learning is really has a hardcore mathematics. So I believe, so with respect to this, we have to really understand the concepts, the nature, and the environment in each course. So that's it. That's my idea.
Okay, thank you. Bert, your view? Professionalization?
Um, for me, I think you can go for certificate courses, just small topics like time series and ARIMA, instead of the whole data science things, because data science and AI is such a large domain. You can't put it in one certificate course. But what we can do is we can have certificate courses specific to specific topics like time series and ARIMA, a course on regression, and then we can check on the prerequisites that the students need or applicants. If they have a background in statistics or some units, then it's easier for them to understand. So I think that's helpful if we can check for their prerequisites, and then you just want a 3-unit course on time series and ARIMA because you're going to use it for your own work. But I'm not going to use NLP, so I'm just going to take this specific course only for a specific use. So like a diploma course, maybe that could work. But the whole thing, put it in one diploma courses, I think that's not going to happen. So specific topics, yes.
I think what you're all mentioning also brought up another random topic. Well, it's not so random. Is clearly because of supply and demand. No, a lot of the courses, the formal ones available, tend to be expensive also, or you have to make an investment. And then what happens is, doesn't always happen like this, no, but in many cases, you also make an investment. Okay, I'm gonna pay for my tuition or borrow money for my tuition to take a master's in analytics or data science. And then the idea is when you graduate, you're supposed to get a job that helps you claw back the the investment. So consequently, the asking rate or the salaries of such people tend to be quite high, no? And if they're lucky enough to get a role, then good. But I've also heard of a lot of cases where people who graduate from many of these courses find it difficult finding a job because companies naman, on the other hand, they're not sure if they're ready to invest in a data scientist at that salary, no? Or they think they're only ready to pay this much, but the person's asking that much. It's kind of an interesting, in a way, dilemma na you're supposed to democratize a field, but it's actually making it harder for people to find roles. No, do you have any? I'll start with you again, Bert. No, any thoughts on this? No, or is that the reason why we should be training people at relatively low cost now or free, so that we don't inflate the the market? No.
Yeah, I think it's a supply and demand thing. It's the same thing that happened to me when I was a web developer back in the late 90s and early 2000. The web developers command a very high price because there was a limited supply, and then suddenly it plateaued after a few years. Everybody knew, and then technology was much easier to use. So there's a possibility in that happening, but I'm seeing AI expanding at a faster rate than web development as I see it. In web development, there's just front end and back end, but in AI, it's even got into Internet of Things and RPA, and it is the new revolution. So I think the problem we have with the graduates is they show the businesses projects that the business is not interested in. They will show a Titanic data set and a Boston House pricing data set that they will show to the employer. The employer will say, I don't need this use case. If you can give me a use case that I can use, so if they apply for a specific industry like energy, please do work on an energy project like predicting wind energy power for wind farms. So that's more practical. And I'm asking the HR and the recruiters to please ask the right questions to the data scientists, like what kind of tools they use, and always if there's a specific problem that they want the applicant to solve, there's a complex problem to solve, then I think it's a match for the data scientist and the recruiter. But if you hire a data scientist just to do dashboard reports, I don't think that's a good match for that kind of applicant. So it's also good if we have a seminar for the recruiters or the HR to understand how do I hire a data scientist. Is the data scientist a match for my organization? Something like that. Yeah,
Maybe data scientists should also join HR. No, they can be
something
the
like
best
that.
recruiters. No.
Another
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah. Okay. Sige. Joseph, did you have anything to add on the supply and demand issue, cost, etc.?
Yeah, I think with respect to that, there should be some kind of partnership between private and private institutions. So companies would tie up with universities or training centers, or it could be private companies would tie up with public organizations, public universities, or private universities. So I think with this way, it would be we could streamline the process and we could avoid the waste of having graduates because when these people would just graduate just for nothing and then when they apply and then these companies would just reject them. I think that would be a waste of time and money on the part of the students. So I think it would be very helpful for companies who would ask universities, training centers, schools that this is the kind of demand of skills that they are demanding. So when these graduates would finish schools or trainings, they have some place to go to. That is what I think. So it's about collaborations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially since a lot of what the schools are teaching are also what the private
Yeah,
trainers are
exactly.
also teaching, no? So they can
Yes,
complement
yes,
each other.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Vincent, your thoughts on this supply demand cost
I
of data
guess
science?
Yeah, I guess it's similar to Sir Joseph what has said. No, as a student, for example, if you want to become a data scientist, you should know the school if there is a partnership with different corporations or enterprises. Because if the university has no partner, has no partner enterprises or company, then after graduation, you will end up, like, where do I find jobs? So what is the expectation for the salaries? Because there are so many companies who are looking for data scientists, but then they can't afford the salary of a data scientist. So in that case, it's very hard for them to look for a job. But if the university, for example, is partnered to a certain enterprises or certain company who are actually looking for a data scientist, so then maybe that's a good point to invest with, to study, to enroll. So yeah, it should be a good idea to look for a university wherein, yeah, it has a partnership with the corporations. So
Yeah.
because salary for data scientists is not a, very small amount of money. So
Yeah, and I think that's why
company,
you see some schools like AIM, they have a
yeah,
partnership ata with Aboitiz
yeah.
and
Actually, AIM
yeah,
is partner with ADB.
or ADB, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I think those were great points. Maybe one more round. Any takeaways or last thoughts you want to give the audience about basically our topic, the inclusivity of data science, or anything you want to share in general? I'll start with you, Joseph, first, and then we'll go around.
Okay. So data science is very interesting. It's for everybody, but then sometimes you would think that it's not for you, but actually it's for you. It just depends on how you would push yourself to learn a lot of skills. But one thing you have to remember is just focus on the skills set that you are interested in before you expand. And also try to make your own personal study if you're not enrolled in any training centers or universities for this kind of subject matter. I think it's best to first do it on yourself and better to also ask for help from other people if you can find one.
Okay, good. Vincent, any last takeaways you want to share?
Yeah. Yeah, my thought is that if you really want to become a data scientist or to enter into the mainstream of, field, so don't wait for the company to invest for you. You can find a very seldom company who can, send you to a university, who can send you to a training institution. Instead, if you have enough time, if you have budget, and if you are really interested to enter into this field, of course, you can invest on yourself. You can enroll to any other certification courses. So in that case, you know, your skills will be, updated. So for example, if there are some biggest companies or enterprises that you want to work in the near future, of course, if you invest on yourself, so you have the, confidence to apply for that specific role.
Thanks, Vincent. Bert, last words from you.
Yeah. For me, if you're really interested into data science, and you like mathematics, and you're really into granularity of things like granularity of data, Don't go just for the salary itself, but you go into data science because you're interested in it. You like to learn it. You like to be challenged with a lot of stuff. And if you can use it for a good project, like weather or something that you're very interested in, you're going to learn a lot of things in it. So that will get you noticed by the employers if you do like a specific project on poverty and population density, and you can put it out in an article and explain that, you will get noticed by the employers themselves. And that's how you do it. Differentiate yourselves from the other data scientists, look for a market niche and work on that. And then you can write LinkedIn articles, or you can write a little bit about your project. As long as the data set is a public data set, then that's all good. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bert. By the way, maybe do you all want to promote your? I think all of you run like a YouTube channel or a respective community of some sort. You want to go first, Bert? Do you want anything you want to promote to the people?
Okay, yeah. I have like a business with Vincent. It's Data Engine training consultancy. So if there's people who are interested in data science trainings or data science consulting, there's that. And then we have the Facebook Data Science Manila page. If you guys are looking for jobs or connecting with internship programs, you just go there and join the community. So it's open, it's free. Okay, thank you.
Vincent, anything you want to promote?
Yeah, currently right now in Benilde, I'm currently looking for some faculty who can teach SAP, who can also teach analytics, because I cannot teach every subject in analytics in Benilde. So I'm currently also looking for some faculty, because Sir Bert already mentioned that we have some services we offer in a data engine training and consultancy. So we do training, we do survey, we also conduct webinars about statistics in the academe, and of course in the other businesses who are requesting training from us. So yeah, that's again just what I need right now is some faculty who can help me teach the analytics course in Benilde.
Right. Joseph, anything to promote?
So if you are interested to learn some concepts as a beginner in data science, I have some lessons for you guys. So just visit Digilytics and you can find there some of my videos. I think that's
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Is this on YouTube or a website?
That's on YouTube. That's on YouTube.
Okay,
How many
excellent.
money you earn from your YouTube channel?
Okay. Okay, that's a wrap, guys. I think that was a very good conversation. Really, really good to have you, and hope to have you in another series of conversations. I don't think we barely scratched the surface of what we wanted to talk about, right? So there's more. I think maybe after this initial podcast, we can schedule another one. Okay. So until next time, thanks a lot, Bert, Joseph, Vincent. Hope to catch you again soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you very much.